Disco, a musical and cultural identity of New York City. Despite being outdated for a long time, the genre has still left a significant impact on music, dance, and nightclub culture today. We see it in popular songs by Daft Punk, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat, and more. But how was disco invented? How does it tell about its birthplace, New York City? We will find out in Group 4 today's video with the topic of New York and the development of disco. Located in the southeastern part of the New York State, New York City is made up of 5 separate boroughs, which are Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, and Staten. On its way to becoming the city of dreams, New York went through the most tumultuous 1960s and 1970s. Mass immigration occurred with influx of immigrants crowded into New York. The Irish and Germans arrived first, followed by Italians, Poles, and Hungarians due to the potato famine in Ireland and revolutionary ferment in Central Europe. Population shift has an impact on economic and social changes as well. New York City was on the edge of bankruptcy, crime was out of control, and the campaigns for women's rights, racial rights, and LGBT rights were all in full swing. Blacks and whites, women and men, rich and poor, gays and straight were all encouraged to do whatever they want behind velvet ropes in the bar. And all of these changes lead to the occurrence of the disco club phenomenon in the same year. New York's diverse population also helps define the city cultures as one of the most distinctive ones in the world. Its theater, dance, literature, music, and art are all manifestations of the diversity that millions of immigrants have brought with them. There are neighborhoods dedicated to Indians, Russians, Italians, Asians, and Latin Americans, and the famed New York City parades reflect this variety. In the early 20th century, the city became a center for modern dance and stand-up comedy. Many cultural movements began in New York, including the Harlem Renaissance in literature and visual art, abstract expressionism in painting, hip-hop, punk, salsa, freestyle, the beat generation in the 1960s, certain styles of jazz, and the special beginning of disco in the 1970s.
So what is disco music and what makes it the icon of the New York in the 70s? Well, disco is a genre of up-tempo music that reached peak popularity during 1970s. It was often played at nightclubs and features repetitive vocals and catchy beats provided by instruments like drum sets, synthesizers, and bass guitar. What sets disco apart from other genres is the fact that the music itself wasn't just about the look, but was more about the story behind it and the response to the society. Disco evolved from different subculture with origin in Philadelphia R&B, African American and Latino musicians, and in private dance party thrown in the underground gay community of New York City. However, disco roots in gay activism are often forgotten today. The movement really began with the Stonewall riots of 1969, the first major incident in which gay men took a collective and forceful stand against police brutality. The rioting became a catalyst for sexual revolution, which then gave way to disco fever. DJs at the clubs would begin playing music created by gay men, openly sexual women, and black artists. And of course, we cannot forget to mention the disco pioneer, David Mancuso, who was also the founder of The Loft, the first model of a disco nightclub in New York City. From that, we have other successful nightclubs such as Studio 54 and Paradise Garage in New York, allowing people from all walks of life, especially those in marginalized communities, to safely come together and dance. Funky sounds, trippy lights, reflective disco balls, and a positive atmosphere leads to disco's rise in popularity. It is undeniable that the rise of disco was strongly linked to New York's political and socio-economic background at that time. The vibrant sound and energetic dance moves of disco provided young people, especially working class, with an escape from what the film critic Roger Ebert called the general depression and drabness of the political and musical atmosphere of the 70s. The economic prosperity and counter-cultural exuberance of the 1960s no longer existed. By the mid-1970s, crime rate soared, and the combined misery index of unemployment and inflation reached new heights, and the economy was really at rock bottom. Together with that are women liberation and gay rights movements that emerged during an era of massive social upheavals, both nationally and internationally. Women, people of color, LGBT people, and workers were all emboldened to take their fights against oppression and inequality to fight for their rights. As a consequence, disco rise helped to foster the fragmentation of the 1970s and was a much-needed wake-up call that brought about a more down-to-earth, liberated way of life characterized by artistic experimentation and careful optimism. The rules were off, and young people embraced their newfound freedom to the fullest. It can be easily found in the disco clubs where people would have a free and uncontrolled sex life. They would do cocaine and poppers on the dance floor. Crowds of club goers would dance together to the beat. The mixing of high and low and socializing without regard to class, status, and origin makes the New York disco nightclubs a place for immigrants and marginalized communities. With the embrace of disco, New York people immerse themselves into freedom, individuality, and personal expression, which creates the New York's unique cultural and musical quintessence.
However, the systemic racism and homophobia that led to the emergence of disco also helped to contribute to its downfall, as many began to rebel against disco culture and what is presented. In 1979, antisocial sentiments reached a fever pitch when Chicago DJ Steve Hall, who was fired after the radio station he worked at, shifted from a rock to a disco format, held Disco Demolition Night during a White Sox game. People were encouraged to bring their old disco records to the game, but Dow blew them up in the field. Shortly after, the feelings about disco seemed to shift, with Disco Sucks becoming the new national tone, and radio stations gradually dropped their disco playlists from the lineup. The disco movement, as it originally was, ended in the 80s, as the AIDS epidemic stormed through the gay community and fear settled all over the formerly jubilant clubs. Nevertheless, disco music continues to influence popular music thanks to its infectious, danceable beats, syncopated rhythms, and repetitive vocals, which can be seen in songs of myriad artists such as Dua Lipa and Daft Punk. In the end, disco is not simply a brilliant musical creation, but also a unique cultural identity that portrays a vivid and yet realistic image of New York society during the 1970s. Without disco, the nightclubs and DJs as we know would never come to existence. So next time, if you dance in a club, you should thank David Mancuso and his band for pioneering such a great style.